So this video is about racist retards who say, who like to say that black people make up 5% of the, or black men make up 5 or 6% of the U.S. population and are responsible for 50% of the murders. Now, I don't know the exact statistics. I'd have to look it up, but black males are responsible for a disproportionate amount of the homicides in the United States. That's statistically, if you look at the crime statistics, you look up that, and you'll see black males tend to commit more murders, more violent crimes in general, murders, robbery, violent robberies, etc. Those kinds of crimes. If you look at other crimes, it tends to be, black people are not so overrepresented in some of the other criminal categories, but in the violent crime, black males are definitely overrepresented. And so you get the racist people, and this is in the United States, specifically in the United States. Black males are overrepresented in violent crime. So you get some of these racist people on the internet saying, "Oh, black men are genetically something, blah blah blah." Well, okay. I'm gonna debunk that, okay? Now, it's very simple to debunk this, because if you look at these statistics, okay, look at the crime statistics in the United States. In the United States, yes, it is true that black males are disproportionately convicted for violent homicides and those kind of robberies and stuff like that. But now if you go to other countries that are predominantly black, or even have much larger black populations than the United States, because the United States is 12% of the population is categorized as black. You go to a lot of countries in the Caribbean, for example, is 80-90% black. African countries is like 95, or a lot of sub-Saharan African countries is going to be 95 to 99% black. And you look at the homicide rates in some of these countries, not all of them, but some of them, the homicide rates are much lower than what they are in certain United States cities. Like, the homicide rate in, say, some of West African countries, Ghana, maybe Kenya, I'm not sure exactly, but some of these countries have lower homicide rates than what you see in, say, a black neighborhood, some low-income black neighborhoods in the United States. So that suggests that you can't say that black people in the United States committing more crimes or more violent crime is genetic, because there's people in other countries who have sub-Saharan African ancestry, and they have lower crime rates than the African Americans and the ones in the United States. So you have to say, logically, that means that the crime rates are a cultural thing. It's a cultural phenomenon. And since the average African American has been living in the United States or their ancestors have been living in the United States since the 1700s, 1600s, 1700s, the United States outlawed the slave trade from Africa, or the importation of slaves from Africa, in 1807. So that means you have to go back more than 200 years to find a African-born ancestor you probably have to go back, it depends, because obviously a person could have come from Africa in 1806 or 1807, and they could still be alive into maybe even the mid-1850, right? But in general, you have to probably go back 150 years or 200 years to find the African-born ancestor of some of these, a lot of African American people. So that means that they've been living in the United States for generations. they've absorbed American culture. Their culture is American. They don't speak Swahili. They don't speak Yoruba. They don't speak any of these Zulu. They don't speak any of these African languages. They speak English. They speak American English. So their culture is completely American. So therefore, if African Americans are committing murders or have high rates of homicide, you have to say that's a cultural phenomenon associated with the United States. That is as American as apple pie, right? All those kids shooting each other in Chicago. That's as American as apple pie. That's 100% United States. That's U.S. made in the USA. All those, or not all, let's say most of those people that are killing each other, those young black men who are killing each other in the United States, they're made in America. So you have to blame. The United States needs to blame itself for this crime. Like there's a song by Shine, a lyric, he said, hip hop ain't responsible for violence in America. America's responsible for violence in America. And that holds true. And if you want to come back to the whole genetic thing, you think that Africans, black people are violent because of genes, so allegedly they got allegedly because of their African genes. Well, you look at, like I said, some of these countries where these African Americans' ancestors came from, like say Ghana, for example. These countries have lower homicide rates than some of these neighborhoods in the United States. So how can you have a city that's say 60% black and it has a very high homicide rate, and then you have a country that's 99% black and the homicide rate is lower? And further, the average African American has a significant, or at least some, European ancestry. Right now, it tends to vary from region to region. If you go in the southern United States, they tend to have less European ancestry, like say Mississippi or Louisiana. But then out in say the West Coast or the Northeast or the Midwest, then you tend to see the African Americans tend to have higher degrees of European ancestry. So say Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Philadelphia, New York City, etc., etc. Those people up there, the African Americans in those areas who migrated out of the South, they tend to have higher degrees of European ancestry than the ones in say a rural area in the South, where they historically had more segregation, historically had higher larger African American population. So they tend to be more mixed. And so these African American people, who some of them may have 60% European ancestry, and so to me, how come? So the question would be, if they have all that European genes, if you're saying that the African genes are making them kill people, but they have 60% European ancestry, how come that isn't making them more peaceful? How come they're not? How come the African American in Detroit with 70% European ancestry is out on the street shooting people, or in Chicago or New York or Los Angeles or wherever? How come that 70% European, 70% genetic European is shooting people? Why is he doing that? Why is he robbing, doing all that stuff? Why is that? Shouldn't that European ancestry be making him more peaceful? How come the The guy with 60-70% European ancestry in the ghetto in Chicago is killing more people than the person with 99% sub-Saharan African ancestry in West Africa. Right? So that's why that whole genetic explanation, blaming genetics doesn't make sense. It's also a cop-out. It's a cop-out because these people, the United States, these people don't want to take responsibility for their own issues. They don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to take responsibility for their own society, because at the end of the day, you want to talk about, oh, black people, white people, this and that. Guess what? You live in the same country. You live in the same city. You got these black people, these African American people. They're living under your system. They have to deal with your police officers, the United States police officers, the United States court system, the United States education system. Everything, they have to deal with the whole United States system. That they live under the United States system. And so these people don't want to take responsibility. They just want to say, oh, they're genetically prone to this and that. They don't want to take responsibility for their own behavior, for their own actions. I'm talking about the people in the system. They don't want to take responsibility. They just want to say, oh, these African Americans are just programmed from birth to do this and that. But they're not taking responsibility, because maybe they're not accepting the fact that their racist behavior is creating a problem, or is helping to create the problem. They don't want to accept that fact.